Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Welcome to League of Legends, and today I'm joining with a friend, Julian, also known as Jets Fantasy. Jets, say hi.
Hey,
And we are doing a League of Legends support guide, because let's be honest, most people don't know how to support. It's sort of the role most people get crammed into when they don't really have a choice, they didn't call a lane fast enough, or their last pick in draft. And this is
and
just
yeah,
This is just a bot game we put together because it's the easiest way to display things. And Julian here is a support main. He's probably the best support I know. So, care to explain some of the support roles?
well, I'm starting off with Soraka because she's an easy to pick up champ for 450 IP, and she has a relatively simple concept. Um, Basically, her passive is called Consecration, and what she does is within a moderate AoE around her, she increases the magic resist of all allied champions by 16. And then she has three different abilities. She can choose to start out at level 1, Star Call, Astral Blessing, and Infuse. Star Call will call down basically stars and damage everything around her. The second one is basically a heal that I'll get into later, and the third one is can give mana, which I will also get into later. So first, I'm going to start with the Starfall. Each time you hit the enemy, you reduce their magic resist by 5, and it stacks up to 10 times. So if you keep hitting it on the opponent, their magic resist will keep falling. You can get up to negative. You can get up to removing about 50 of their magic resist if you keep it up.
Now, if I remember right, the support's job's also to try and poke while the AD carry does
Yeah,
this
a
thing.
lot of people complain about, oh, support's so boring, or how do you support? I can't, it's so boring, I don't know what to do. The thing is with support, you want to actively be thinking about your lane and then also keep eyes on the other lanes. Place wards in the brush or even over here over by Dragon, so you have a little bit more room to um, know where the jungler is. But
Uh,
yeah,
I mean, obviously we're not trying here, so this isn't a display of challenge. We'll do an actual game a bit later. But
yeah,
this is just to demonstrate some of the skills of support because, as I said, it's not a very common role for most people.
yeah. Basically, as support, you want your AD carry to do his last hits, but while that happens, there's going to be other people trying to stop him. So your job is to poke them and try to even deny last hits for them, so that they lose precious farm and your AD carry is safe.
Always good to have your AD carry safe.
Oh yeah.
Now, I mean, where are some good places for ward placement? Because I know some people who are trying to start off as support because either they just find it easier for them or it's something that they like more. Where's some good places to ward? I'll have the camera on you because I'm not too worried about them.
Okay. Well, I usually already placed one in the brush. That's typically a popular one in the lower elos. Just I like having the vision inside the brush, but then people will go up here towards the river and even like right here, where the dragon, or even at this intersection up here where the enemy's blue buff is. That way you have a little bit more time to react to the jungler, and then also your own tri brush instead. Because your jungler or your opponent's jungler may counter jungle and then try to get from behind and cut you off.
Okay, well, that those are some good ward placements for the start of the game. Obviously, as the game evolves, you want to try and ward in the enemy jungle and your own jungle to try and
Oh yeah,
prevent ganks as much as possible.
oh yeah. Wards are OP.
It's true. Vision is OP. Anybody who says otherwise obviously doesn't play this game very well.
The only problem I really have with Soraka is that her Q can steal CS from the AD carry. But
Yeah,
on the plus side, she does throw bananas.
she does. Bananas are OP, especially since Wukong's pretty popular right now.
Yeah, that armor shred. But AD crit Soraka is another thing entirely.
Well, what are some of the utilities that a support brings to a team?
It
Because I
depends
know.
on what support you're talking about, but when it comes to support, there's three basic concepts of a support of what a support can be. You have what's called the poke support kind of champion, which is characters like Lulu, perhaps even Sona, where they have far range moves that can help poke from long ranges, low risk. There's also the all-in types like Taric and Leona, which basically it's do or die for them, and when they start landing their stuff, the AD carry needs to follow up. Otherwise, the support is pretty much doomed to die.
Now that was a
And then
little
there's
interesting.
also the sustain comp, which we're doing right now, where you have someone who's focused on heals like Soraka or even Sona, and just basically heal for the poke.
Ah, that wither.
Oh yeah. See, I like Morgana's support also because of her CC shield. It helps bottom lane especially.
Now, um, there's a lot of unconventional lanes here, like Morgana support or stuff like that, and there's the idea of kill lane. And what's the advantage of bringing a support over, even an unconventional support over a kill lane?
Well, most unconventional supports are going to have more, they're going to have better damage ratios. They're going to benefit a lot more from AP than normal supports, and that their base damages are going to be higher. For example, Morgana, Elise, Lux, Fiddlesticks, those are even Kale. Those are all considered unconventional supports, and I personally see them as very offensive supports because the object isn't really to build so much utility, it's more to build damage along with your AD carry. Sometimes,
So,
like especially with Elise support, she wants to go for damage to make up for the early game of the AD carry.
so they're the unconventional supports are typically poke supports, is what you're saying.
They're uh, they're
Poke.
usually a hybrid between a support and a AP carry.
Okay. And what's the advantage of a support over, say, a kill lane?
Well, kill lanes were actually created to counter the AD carry's snowballing, and because of that, it's made these lanes pretty difficult. But one thing that does help is a uh, sustained comp as like we are, and especially AD carries like Ezreal who has built-in escapes. Well, his E, how he blinks, it helps with kill lanes because he can escape from a bad situation a lot easier. Meanwhile, champions like Soraka can heal and protect the AD carry from the mostly they're bruisers, or even there are even some supports that go in a kill lane, such as Leona. She's one of the best regular supports, and she's also one of the best kill lane supports.
Okay. So,
The kill lane, since you don't feed on farm, they get their gold mostly on kills.
hence the name.
Yeah, they go for kills rather than CS, or they
So,
prioritize the kills more than they prioritize CS.
the best way to counter a kill lane is through a poke or sustain comp, right?
A poke or sustain comp, yes, because if you go with an all-in comp, you're not going to be powerful enough.
They're all in's better than your all in.
Yes, it typically, because I've seen characters such as Jax, who's just pretty ridiculous by himself, um, be in a kill lane, and then if you have someone like Renekton on top of that, you have a lot of stun, and you also have a lot of power shared between those two. Whereas this comp that we have pretty much have a silence, and that's pretty much it. That's all we got.
Well, I mean, it's a bot game. We can't really trust bots to play effectively.
Well, true, but I'm just giving you an example of our bottom comp against like a kill lane.
Yeah. Now, going back, I mean, what's your call for the most part on going back when it comes to support?
When it comes to support, you want to give your AD carry the option to go back first because typically most people want to go back and get um, the first buy is almost always a BF sword. It's a good solid pick all around just because of all that attack damage.
Which is what I
And
just got.
yeah, see, and then basically communicate with your ADC even if you don't know them, and tell them that you are going to go back and for them to play defensively because if they go out too far, they could get themselves killed while you're gone, and that happens a lot more than I personally like
So,
to happen.
in terms of builds, what is the main thing you want to go with the support? Because I know
Well,
I know gold per 5 and auras are pretty popular
um,
for obvious reasons.
yes, the tankier supports usually get more auras than supports like Soraka or Sona because they're going to be in the middle of the action more often than, Soraka or Sona who kind of just stay on the outskirts of a team fight. So that way the auras benefit more allies.
Ah, Annie's just tippers me. Fortunately, I'm Ezreal and I can not give a crap. I'm gonna use a very poor Ezreal out here. So you want to go with auras if you're more tanky. What would you build as Soraka? Since we're talking about how she's sort of
Well,
your basic
Soraka,
support.
what's great with Soraka is cooldown reduction, maybe even a little AP. Um, like, uh, you want to start with an early Philosopher's Stone or even a Cage's Lucky Pick. Let's go for the kill here.
Okay. Stun me.
Oh, you don't have your ult, do you? There you
Got it.
go. Long range on that.
Like,
What's
like you
good
said,
about
man. Poke.
Soraka is if she has more cooldown reduction, she can spam her heals a lot more, and her E, which gives allies mana, or even silences opponents. So there's two different ways to use that, depending on who you cast it on. And so cooldown reduction is really valuable on her because she can, like I said, spam the heals, and that's pretty much her gimmick is the sustain she offers.
She does offer good sustain.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, so you typically want to go with cooldown reduct with that. Is that a trend with sustain, cooldown and AP?
Cooldown reduction is good on any support because supports are given a more utility-based build. It's not so much damage or anything like that. It's what they bring to the team. Whereas characters like Annie, for example, she has damage, more damage, and a shield to protect herself. Nice one.
Thank you. Gotta love Israel.
Yeah. I mean, I have even seen an Annie support once, but you basically stick with what she's good at when it comes to most supports. What's important is crowd control. And while Soraka only has one soft, what's considered soft CC, since the character can still move around, it's also pretty good to use, especially against Annie, because see how she has her stun? She can't use her spells, even though she has her stun up with that silence.
Now
So
let
it helps against AP casters.
let's get into the topic of CC because that's pretty big for a support, as you
Oh
just said.
yeah.
What are some? Is there any CC that is more towards one type over another? Because I feel all in is something that would have more along the lines of a hard CC, simply because of the
Uh,
fact that they need to
the
go all in.
yeah, the all-in typically have more hard CC, such as Leona and Taric. Um, Leona more because she has a snare on top of two stuns, and and or a slow for one of her stuns, depends on how she aims it. But yeah, typically the harder the support goes in, the harder their CC will be, such as characters like Sona, she can have a damage reduction or a slow, and then her ult is an AoE stun. So, oh, did it on the wrong one.
It's okay. Misclicks, they happen,
I
even
know.
by the best.
Oh yeah, but on Annie with the stun, that could be devastating.
Like that.
What's good about Soraka's heal is it gives bonus armor.
Yes, it does. Which is
See,
good
it
for those
gives
moments where you're...
105 actually, so it's actually Soraka's actually very powerful given her kit. It's
Nope.
just that um, she's squishy. That's the only problem.
Yeah, although she can be deceptively powerful given her ability to grant armor. Now, obviously, we're not really trying here. If we
Yeah,
were, this would be
um,
a
we
bit
would
more
already have
snowballed.
the turret by now.
Yeah. We're just doing this to have something in the background where we discuss it, so I have a point of example.
Yeah, it
Um,
also kind of helps me analyze my own techniques.
yeah, there's nothing better than being able to reflect on your own
Oh yeah.
playstyle. So, what would you typically want to max first with a support? Because AD carries, you typically want to get your main damage dealer while having some points in a poke or something.
Yeah, well, with supports, you want points in on like what you have as utility. For example, I maxed my Astral Blessing first, so I could heal for stronger and give either you or I more armor during a burst from like Annie. Well, not really Annie, but from Nasus,
Yeah, because
because it's
his
armor, not magic resist. My passive gives you help against Annie,
yeah
but it depends on what you're up against. If you're up against something that's going to be making you use your heal a lot, then max your heal first. If you're against someone who is going to be casting a lot of abilities, or you want to stop their flash, then max infuse because that silences them for a longer duration. Let's go mid because I believe I saw Malphite take the turret. Nope, they're up here with us. Okay, there's three up here.
okay.
And
I
then
mean,
Buford's Starfall is more for an offensive Soraka build, maybe even Soraka mid.
because she can go mage. Most supports can take a pretty offensive role.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of a fun role too, because not everyone knows how to defend against a support going damage dealer.
There's that escapability.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's our Gator.
Gator v Gator. And here we get a pretty good example of a
What you want to do as support is also help your ADC peel. You don't want to leave them alone like I kind of did. I got a little bit farther away than I should have.
it's all right.
Yeah.
So that's actually a really good setup to a good point in conversation. What a support's role is in a team fight.
The team fight aspect for support depends on the actual support you're using. But for example, since we're using Soraka in this example, we're going to be covering peeling for we're more for covering peeling for the ADC, helping make sure he gets out of the fight alive, and supporting the team too. Like right now, everyone's kind of low, so I can use my ult to heal everyone on the map.
Which I believe helped Trundle top.
Yes,
Who's
Trundle's going up against Cho'Gath right now, and Renekton's fighting Annie. So that help will could make the difference between life and death.
yes. Now ults are kind of tricky because certain champs like Blitzcrank, if he's a support, his ult's more to cause a single fight, whereas Soraka can literally tip the scales anywhere.
Yeah, Soraka can help in a team fight from anywhere and even rack up assists because of healing from even that far away. And so if she's like doing something like going back and trying to get items or something, she can still participate in a team fight by using that ult when your team is in a tight situation.
Now, due to the nature of assists and the like, would you recommend? It's sort of a weird topic, but would you recommend, say, getting a snowball item on a support?
It really depends on your support and how the opponent is playing. Snowball items are very, very risky items, especially if your enemy is competent and knows to press tab and look at items and see. I personally, when I see a snowball item on the enemy team, I tell my team to try to find that person when they're by themselves and to shut them down to get rid of their stacks because that can become a very dangerous situation if they have max stacks on a Sword of the Occult or even a Magi's Soul Stealer.
Trying to lead the target with my ult, and they hit all four of them.
Watch out, Malphite's coming up to you.
Yeah, Malphite's the one I'm worried about. Now, because I'd feel remiss if we didn't talk about this. What's a good counter for a support, more or less?
Um, a good counter for a support, it really depends on the support you use, but let's go with the three basic types. It's basically a game of rock, paper, scissors against poke comps, sustain comps, and all-in comps. Um, and so the poke comp is defeated by the sustain comp because usually the sustain comp will consist of someone with a high-powered heal, like Soraka, for example, who can heal more than the poke does. And but the sustain comp is countered by the all-in comp, which focuses on damage bursts. And the damage burst is countered by the poke comp because as long as you don't let the all-in engage, you can poke them from afar and they can't do anything about it. So it's typically a game of rock, paper, scissors.
Okay, well that makes sense.
But of course, as you know, skill does also play a factor. You can
Yep.
play a counter and still lose your lane. And that's something I'd like to stress because, for example, I played a ranked game not too long ago, and I played Leona. Why? Because I like playing Leona, and the enemy countered me by picking Alistair, who is technically a counter because of his ability to displace Leona out of her ability combo. By the end of the game, we had shut down the enemies, and the enemy Alistair was accusing Leona of being overpowered, which I find kind of hilarious because what I think he did is look at like someone one of the popular pro supports, well ex pro. He does a blog on supporting and stuff, but the only problem is he knows every single support in and out. And when people pick up his guide and see, oh, this counters this, they don't know why. They don't question it. They just go straight for it. They're like, okay, that counters it.
Well, it's sort of dangerous for people who don't actually look into things like that. Like they look into the Mobile guide, but they don't see the reasoning behind the Mobile guide.
Yeah,
And
yeah. So that can get you killed more than picking a support you're comfortable with.
now, in terms of farm, when is a good time for a support to farm? Because they can't rely solely on cheap E5.
Yeah. Well, gold for 5 is usually the primary source of income because uh, the object is to let the ADC get the farm. But a good time to help is when the ADC goes back.
Got them anyway. Sorry, I was excited.
That's okay. If, for example, you want to push your lane and the ADC is going back, that's the perfect time to start racking up the last hits. Because you want your lane to go forward, and it's not gonna go forward if you don't push it.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah. But if you want the enemy to get closer towards your turret so a jungler can gank, for example, then what you want to do is get the last hits on the enemies when they're extremely low health, such as like less than 50, because it'll push the wave very insignificantly.
Okay, so like everything in this game, it's completely reactionary. There's no surefire win guide.
No, it's completely situational based on a team's composition.
So that makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
anything else you want to add before we wrap this up in terms
Um,
of 101 guide to support?
For Soraka, I recommend building CDR, and she doesn't really have too many problems with mana. unless you're spamming Starfall, like you max that first in case you may want to get a Chalice because that'll give you 20% cooldown reduction and give you basically Vigor's passive, which increases your mana regen by 1% for every 1% you're missing. So if you're using someone who has a lot of mana cost as a support, then Chalice is definitely an excellent item because of an all-around excellent item because of defense it brings. It gives you some AP for your abilities and cooldown reduction, along with the passive. But yeah, other than that, try to think of what your opponents need, or not what your opponents are powerful with,
Might well die
what
here.
your team needs, and what you can do to stop that.
See, that right there was a firm example of a power of a good support. I was dead there.
No, I silenced Cho'Gath so he couldn't ult you.
And you basically healed me through all their CC. So
Yeah,
let's go ahead and end it with that because that was a badass example of a good support.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
if you guys have any questions, we'll be making a follow-up video for this. And Julian, do you have a channel?
Yeah, I'm starting up another channel now that my old one's kind of 6 years old, like 7 years old, and it's kind of childish. So yeah, I'm starting up a new channel.
What's the name of it?
It's just fantasy, the same as my account.
Okay, so there you can see his name right there in the tab thing. There's his build and 5 assists, which is badass for a support. And yeah, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, good hunting.